I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Council, are there any changes to the agenda tonight? I'm going to have two appointments tonight, so I'll add those to the agenda down here at the bottom, just so you know. So we'll go to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the May 11, 2020 council meeting. Approval of May 15, 2020 payroll of $111,449.91. Approval of the USDA Step 1 debt in the amount of $12,975. Approval of CoBank interim financing debt in the amount of $30,026.22. Approval of the April finance report. Resolution of authorizing fund transfer. Acceptance of the beautification commission minutes. Acceptance of the library board minutes. Acceptance of the Arbor Committee minutes. Resolution of employment in the Park and Recreation Department. Approval of liquor license for Localized Store and Everybody's Whole Foods. And approval of total claims in the amount of $920,560.01. Claims over $75,000 include Drish Construction for $244,088.40. That was for the taxiway. And PKG Contracting Inc. For $271,175.60 for wastewater treatment.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Flournoy. Any further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Okay, that was approved unanimously. I don't see that we have any public forum or appearances here. So we'll move right on to resolution, action items, and ordinances. I will open the public hearing on the matter of the fiscal year 20 budget amendment. And of course, no one's here. Do we have any comment, Aaron, from anybody planning to call in?
No.
Okay.
No written or questions
Okay.
directed to me.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments from anybody out of your wards? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and then go to that resolution. And Rebecca, maybe you just want to, would you give your explanation again?
So what that was the budget the note that we took out for $775,000, although we budgeted for that to come in to make a payment out of it, it was not budgeted out of the right function, which is debt service. So we made an adjustment for that.
Any questions, council, on that? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Flournoy. Any further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next resolution, consideration of providing support of workforce housing tax incentive program application for North Campus Village Phase 6. And Martin, Brett is back there, and
Hi, thank you. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to come or stay home or what these days, but here I am. So this is a continuation of North Campus Village. One of the city is the gateway for these housing grants that have made the pricing possible, that have made all this housing come in and sell extremely fast. And so there's no commitment other than the city saying, yes, we would like to see this housing done. And other than that, the city has no obligation here for this resolution.
great. Any questions for Martin? If not, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Rasmussen. Any further questions? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Martin.
Okay.
Good job. Keep up the good work.
Okay. See you soon.
Okay, ordinance number 1186. This is the third and final reading regarding water deposits, changing them from $75 to $125, and keeping that deposit until the termination of service. And no comments from the public, any council members?
I was just going to ask, did anyone else get an email from a local citizen about that?
I did.
I did
and
also.
I responded,
Okay.
and she actually thanked me for the explanation and agreed.
Okay.
It was worth doing.
Great, thank you.
Bless you.
Okay, if no further comment, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Ham. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's approved unanimously to change that water deposit from 75 to 125. Under the mayor's report, I have a couple thank yous. First of all, I want to thank Scott Vaughn and volunteers for putting up the flags this weekend. The park looked beautiful, and we had great weather for it most of the weekend. It was really nice. And Werner Elmker and the FACC staff, Fairfield Arts and Convention staff, because at the last minute they put together and Jason put together a Memorial Day service that turned out to be really nice. And I think a lot of people, I got several comments and people appreciated it, so it was nice. Thank you to everyone who participated in that. I'd like to appoint Sean Diddy to the Fairfield Media Center. She will be replacing Brian Smith. And she has quite a background in television. She's actually a former Miss Iowa, and she most recently was a host on Jewelry Television. So she has lots of background in TV and media, and is affiliated with Produce Iowa. So I think, actually Jason said he tried to get her a year ago, but she left us for a little while, but now she's back. So if I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Ham. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Approved unanimously. The next appointment would be Sandy Fiddler to the Arbor Committee, replacing Susan Romero. And Sandy's a farm girl, and she and her husband actually have a farm with 50 fruit trees. She has an interest in trees, and she's looking forward to helping create short and long-term goals and making sure that we appropriately plant trees in the right trees in the right places. So I'd take a motion to approve that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Hallie, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I did have just the last little, no, there's two things. Regarding the Arbor Committee, and you see the minutes that were there, one of the things, a couple things that they're looking at going forward are, of course, planting appropriate trees and also management for some of the state preserves like Lamson Woods. They were originally set up really to take care of that emerald ash borer, and so I think it would be appropriate to make them more of an advisory board towards our property committee and get some of those plans, longer term plans and property management when we've got those preserves. Michael, you want to say anything about that? Any discussion that you had?
Yeah, it was a good meeting. We had three tree, what do you say, the affectionate nerds, talking about trees. Very happy to talk with each other because they could get into this kind of nerdy minutia. But yeah, the idea, if you read the minutes, it's very interesting that Lamson Woods was donated to the city back in the 70s. And at the time, it was city property, but managed by the Department of Natural Resource as a preserve. and a temporary management plan was put in place. And in the 70s, the idea was to leave things alone. So like, you don't come in and take out invasives, you don't do anything. You literally leave it alone. But that plan was never meant to be the long-term plan. It just never, a long-term plan never developed. So this committee will be taking a look at that. I think the committee's role is dictated under the urban tree section of our ordinance, and it is advisory. That's all it's ever been.
Okay.
But the plan itself, luckily we have Ray Len, who's continuing on the Arbor Committee. His full-time day job is DNR district forester. So he can take time later in the summer to start this process by doing an inventory of the 40 acres in Lamson Woods. He'll do the biological inventory. There's a lot more that goes into these plans. At some point, we're probably going to have to talk about hiring an expert to write it because it's that level of detail. But there are some local citizens who are interested in helping, so maybe the citizens can do as much legwork as possible and then feed that information into a professional. But a gentleman from the DNR has said, yeah, the DNR will look at a plan if you create one, that they would like to see a more permanent plan that is a little bit more modern. And by modern, now some management where you actually do come in and you take some trees out and you're allowed to put in some trails. That's more modern management, not the complete hands-off. When you allow it to go completely hands-off, you can get invasive species. You can get a lot of unwanted growth in there. So this could be a really important thing for this group to be looking at. Like I said, there's interest in the community. The DNR is open to it. So, and that was Sandy when I talked to her. She was really excited about that because that's kind of what she's doing with her property. She and her husband own. They're managing some woods, so she's already kind of got that mindset of proper management. So, yeah, it's going to be a good group. Probably won't need to meet again until after Ray does his inventory. So that was another thing that Sandy was glad to hear. The group doesn't meet that often.
Yeah. Okay.
A few
Great.
times a year.
Well, sorry for kind of jumping ahead, but I just wanted to again make sure that it's clear that if it wasn't clear that it's an advisory committee, that everyone's on board with that. And I do want to appoint a couple more people yet to this board. Currently, it's been 4 people. And anyway, so expect a couple more appointments. I would like to add 2 more. And the last thing is I got a call today from a citizen concerned about people putting mowing and blowing grass into the street. And the ordinance suggests that we don't do that because it does plug up the sewer when, the storm sewer next to the curb. So just reminding people that try to mow in for a couple strips. And apparently we do have some places that are plugging up. So please be mindful of that. Okay, City Attorney. John, do you have anything?
I do have one. We had an at-length discussion with council, closed session part of it last meeting. Just want to inform the council, we did follow up with ICAP. ICAP told the 3 local attorneys to go ahead and work on the defense. That resulted in turning over, for purposes of the injunction, open meeting, and public record claims, everything we could within the statute before the holiday. We turned it in on, I believe, the 23rd. 22nd, I guess, was last Friday. We also filed our responsive pleadings on behalf of everybody, which included the city councilman Paul Gandy, the 28E agency, and I think we're pretty well set to have at them as far as seeing where they go next as far as discovery and so forth. But that has been defended. ICAP said they'd look over our shoulder. They weren't prepared yet to give us a letter one way or another as far as whether they were reserving the right to provide us some defense. But they told us to go ahead in the meantime. So that's my report.
Great. Thank you, John. Committee and board reports. Katie, no, public safety?
Yep.
Yeah.
So public
Okay.
safety met on the 19th, and we were charged with reviewing the fine structure of the current dog control code, reviewing how the surrounding communities are monitoring and providing dog control, and discussing changing the animal control board to an advisory board. So with regards to the fee structures, it was a lengthy meeting and it felt rather hopeless at times, but we did decide to up. Well, it's actually initially we're not upping anything. We're changing the fees from misdemeanors to starting at the municipal infractions that we have allowed the city to do now, hoping that it'll be an incentive and a little easier for the police officers to write that first ticket. And then in addition to that $50 municipal infraction, come any additional fees that are already in place. If the dog was impounded, you've got to pay the vet fee. If you haven't licensed the dog for the city, you've got to pay the licensing fee. If the dog hasn't been vaccinated, you can't pick it up till it's been vaccinated. So in addition to our 50 come all these additional fees. There's a $50 reclamation fee, I think, just to get your dog back. So we're hoping that by making the fees a little stiffer, people might hopefully be a little more responsible. And by starting with a municipal infraction, we're enabling our local law enforcement to more easily write the tickets and hopefully enforce the code that already exists. After that point, it'll go up to the 75. It'll be a tiered structure. It'll go up to 75 and 100, which was what the Animal Control Board had discussed. At the $75 and $100 fees, it's my understanding from Officer Kinsella, who was at the meeting, that those will become misdemeanors then. So you start at municipal infraction, then you move up to a misdemeanor. So we are moving that to Mr. Morrissey to write up. We'll review it and then hopefully have something to bring back to council. We did look at what surrounding communities are doing, and if you can imagine it, they're doing it. We've got one community using a wastewater treatment person to pick up dogs. We've got civil officers. We've got full-on officers. So as a city, we would like to see ourselves back in a position, for those who remember Kendrick, to maybe look at in the near future bringing back a civil officer. So we'll hopefully be talking to Ways and Means to figure out how we need to budget for that in years to come. And then after reviewing kind of what brought the board together, the purpose they served and everything, the committee decided to leave the board in its current structure and not move it to an advisory board at this time, hoping that they could maybe then take some of the efforts, whether we do a community fundraiser or whatever we need to do to get that civil officer in place, that maybe they could come together and help with that in their current capacity. So that's kind of what we were handled, and hopefully in the near future we'll have those changes to present to you.
Okay, great. Any questions? Economic Development Committee, Michael?
We met before the meeting tonight, had 3 items that we discussed. There's no action to council. First was an alley closure request by a local restaurant. I did speak with the owner of the restaurant, and it wasn't an entirely specific request. It was a little bit still more general and vague. I communicated the owner's request to the committee. We discussed the pros and cons of closing an alley in the downtown, and felt that doing so, we didn't want to favor one private business over others, and felt there might be some safety concerns in closing an alleyway where there's parking access and dumpster access in that space. So we're deciding not to recommend to close it at this time. One alternative could be, and Aaron can talk to our Park and Rec director about this, would be adding a couple of tables to Central Park to have more public space, outdoor dining space that's not specific to a particular restaurant. And we do know, we got an update from Melanie that Petro Park is progressing. That's where the Tribune building used to be. And when that's finished, that'll provide some outdoor space that'll free up. And again, that request came before, I believe, the governor made the requirements that are kind of loosening up a bit coming up in June. So hopefully the establishment will be able to open inside with the proper social distancing within the near future. So no action on that one. The next was the setback requirements, or the, what's the term called, Melanie? Non-conforming uses, thank you. It's technical terms. We talked about this, I don't know if it was this year or last, but sometimes a corner lot is difficult to build on if there's not a structure there, because both the setbacks from both direction are considered front setbacks, so you're 30 feet in both front yard setbacks. So just that kind of thing where the buildability of lots becomes a challenge, we wanted to look at as a committee, and essentially anytime the code makes it difficult to build, and for really no good reason, we want to make it easier. So what it would do would be, in a corner lot, one side would be the front and the other would be the side yard, and there now you've got different setbacks, and now the lot is more buildable. And other things, like if somebody has a porch or a deck and they replace it in the exact same footprint or smaller, that's fine. We're not going to impose different setbacks on just rebuilding something that already exists. And then also making the setbacks in an area the average of the properties within 300 feet, so that if somebody is rebuilding in an area and all the houses are X distance from the sidewalk or from the road, that they could be that same distance or an average of it, rather than being forced to be further back. So again, it's all about trying to allow empty lots in town to be more easily built upon, but still maintaining safety. And one of the issues we talked about was no permanent structures within a certain distance of the back of the curb. And right now the code says 20, and Melanie had looked into other cities and they have 30, they have 50, they have, even further back from the street. And what that would entail is, say somebody has a retaining wall, something very solid that's very close to the road. That could be a danger, that if somebody was, needed to get off the street in a hurry, then they pull over. There's usually the DOT likes to maintain a safe zone, and that would be, the right of way. Usually there's a space in there to pull up, and especially on corner lots for visibility, when you're blocking the view with something. So again, current structures would probably be grandfathered in, but moving forward, just you want the setbacks to be light enough that things are buildable, but also meet our safety requirements for site distances. So the committee wants to see a little bit more formulated language. So Melanie's going to work with John Morrissey in his office to try to get something that we can consider and bring to the council as an amendment. The third and final thing we talked about was a CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, Housing Rehabilitation Program that Aaron brought to my attention. It's one of those things that the concept is wonderful, but the actual administration could be, I don't know if nightmarish is the right word, but if anybody remembers the facade restoration program downtown, this is almost the exact same. The city would have to get private property owners who fit these certain income requirements together. The city would have to flesh out a scope of work, and it's all external improvements. We would have to then request the funds, and if we were approved, we'd have to administrate all the work, make sure it's done to certain specifications, pay for it, and then get reimbursed after the fact. So we were asking our city staff who were involved with the downtown facade restoration how that went. Apparently we haven't even been paid entirely for what we were owed on that project. And yeah, I think so. And there was some miscommunication in terms of what property owners thought they were getting and how much they were paying. And we're just not ready to jump into it again at this time. We may let some local nonprofits become aware of this program if they want to administrate something like this. The city could be a little bit more of a pass-through, but with the requirements as it is, we just do not have the staff bandwidth to manage something like this. So we're not recommending moving on it, but perhaps sharing it with some other local entities who, I'm not going to name names, but some that may have an interest in something like this.
Would the city need to put a match into that?
I do not believe we would. I think it's,
Because downtown we put $100,000.
yeah,
I thought.
yeah, this is different. I'll let you read this after if you want, but it's all for exterior work, and the property owner have to fit the low to moderate income, so 80% or below income of area, median income, and it's only available to cities and county governments. But so, again, it's a great idea, but we've been down this road before, and we just know it can really take a lot of time to do these things.
It would be nice if you could find like a block of homes.
Exactly.
And do the entire,
Yep.
instead of all over town, do one section of town and
Yeah.
get the property owners to cooperate, and that's.
That's the key, what you just said there.
Yeah.
And then and some people just don't want to have their entire lives gone through when it comes to something like this to show that, hey, I qualify for this or something like that. So there's a pride factor in not doing it, but on the flip side, there's a lot of benefits, but it gets to be a headache for us to try and get those people to sign up.
Yep.
Great.
So that's all for that.
Thank you very much, Economic Development Committee, Michael and Katie and Tom, for taking the time to look through all those things. I think that's great. And timing on that maybe just will be later. So, and then the Arbor Committee.
All right. So, Jason, if you open that link, landscaping worksheet, so it's kind of a blend of the second page are the allowable or trees, and the first page is kind of just the standard permit for planting in the right of way. Now, when I looked at this, I realized the Arbor Committee is recommending a language change. So it used to say recommended trees and then not allowable. And now we're saying it should be a permitted list. Basically, it's the city's right of way, and we're saying, no, these are the trees that we're going to allow you to plant in there. And now when I look at this, I realize the not allowable is a little redundant because it's inferred that if it's not on the list, it's not allowed. So we're kind of singling out by naming the not allowables. It's those plus any other particular tree that is not on the other two lists. So let's not focus on that. Let's just focus real quick on the less than 30 feet. The ones with the asterisks have all been added. So we've added American smoke tree, choke cherry, dwarf chinkapin oak, flowering crabapple, rough leaf dogwood, serviceberry, juneberry, thornless green hawthorn, and witch hazel. Oh, and red buckeye. So we've expanded the list for small trees that are allowed, but we've only added one to the large trees. So in a sense, the message is smaller trees are better for the right-of-way. They don't interfere with power lines as much. They're a little easier to manage. But the smaller trees are for where the right-of-way is 5 to 8 feet and where there's power lines overhead. And a lot of these are very small trees. They're not going to get that tall. And then large trees are for areas where between the sidewalk and the street is 8 feet or greater, and there are no power lines overhead. So those are recommended trees. Now, since we put this list together, I'm thinking, do we need a list of non-allowable? Because if I'm looking at this and I have a tree in mind, I don't see it on the now allowable, I might think it's allowed, but it's kind of redundant. It's either these in the small, or it's the large, or it's not permitted. And it'd save a lot of space. So I'd recommend that change to this list, but otherwise I'd like to recommend the city adopt this new list of small and large trees allowed in the right-of-way.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
And we'll strike the portion about non-allowable trees.
Yeah, just take that out.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved by Michael and second by Doug to just put in the allowable trees and take out the non-allowable trees. Questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, please call a roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham.
Yes. Okay, that was approved unanimously.
And the other list isn't something for us to vote on because it's a parks decision. And this is truly just a recommended list. It's just, like I said, the tree nerds, and I guess say that the most affection possible. Just, hey, let's just give the Parks Department a list of some really great native trees that are really good for parks. I know for a fact they've already planted a lot of these, and our parks are full of a lot of these, but I'm going to just forward this over to the Park and Rec director and say, here's a list of recommended trees, but we don't want to be heavy-handed and say these are, it's the parks. They can choose their own trees. So
So if someone wants to put a memorial tree downtown on the square,
this would be a
choose
good
from that
list.
list.
Yeah, it would be a great list to show people. It's a good one for memorial tree options. But yeah, again, it's just a recommendation, so I don't think we need to vote on it. It's kind of a friendly recommendation.
Great, thank you. Okay, the administrator and department reports.
Okay, before Melanie does her project update, I have a couple announcements per se. The Power Wagon Parade and Rally has been canceled this year because of the COVID-19 virus. The Senior 2020 Parade that we had approved at the last council meeting has been postponed until June 5th. We also need to know what the council feels about fireworks. Do we want to continue with our fireworks this year or not? The Fair Board has said they'd consider it if we want to do it. We still need to go back to them and say, hey, yes, we are interested in continuing with our fireworks project or fireworks show this year. If we don't do the fireworks show, Scott's already talked to the company that we work with. They would just hold our fireworks for next year, and it would be fine. But if we do decide we want to do a fireworks show, we still do that. But we still need to try and do some fundraising, or we end up covering the costs ourselves. Normally, we use about $2,000 in local option sales tax money for it, and then we fundraise about $3,500. I don't know how much. We normally have already started that process at this point, but we didn't know where we would be as far as that's concerned. So we kind of need to make a decision on how far we want to go with the fireworks project at this point.
what would be
Any suggestions?
what's the plan for handling the crowd if they wanted to go forward with it?
Well, we don't have one at this point, but if we do it out at the fairgrounds, we obviously have a lot more space to handle the crowd compared to if we were at Waterworks Park. So you could actually park in your cars or stay by your vehicles and watch the fireworks compared to what you can do at Waterworks Park. We'd have to set something up at this point for social distancing, or recommend social distancing in the process of this fireworks show.
Was the county fair canceled this year?
County fair has been canceled, yes, and that's a week before.
Yeah.
That's in June.
That's a hard event to keep any sort of distancing.
Is it worth even looking at the Labor Day fireworks?
I think we could postpone and wait till Labor Day. Again, that would be something we'd have to talk to the Fair Board about, see if they'd be interested in doing it at that point in time. I don't know I'd have to talk to Scott again about what kind of answer we have to give the fireworks company.
Sure.
But if that's the direction the council would be interested in, we could certainly pursue that a lot easier, or pursue that too.
So you said they're going to hold the fireworks. Have they already been ordered? And
We have it reserved.
We signed a contract with them.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
last year.
Yeah, multi-year.
I like the idea of
I don't
trying
want to be the one
postpone
to.
it.
Postponing, yeah, I
Cancel
think
it.
that's a
Make
responsible
it, see if we
thing.
can make a decision, kick it down the road, and make a decision in late June or middle of June.
Postpone the decision for the 4th of July, or postpone it for
Or maybe
Labor
do
Day.
Labor Day. Consider
Okay.
Labor Day. See
Okay.
if the Fair Board would be interested in. Maybe things will
I-
be looking better then.
I would like discussion so that people that are listening to this now could give us some feedback of what they think. Because where I'm going is I don't know how many other things would be canceled again come Labor Day, but that's usually, Old Threshers and other things are going on that weekend, that we would have.
Threshers is not canceled, right?
I said there are things like that scheduled on that weekend that I'm looking at what would our competition be, where if we were to move it to a date like that, what kind of crowds would we have? I'm just asking that question, so.
Maybe postpone it temporarily and not maybe make a firm commitment for a later date.
I guess I don't know.
I mean, there
Does-
still isn't a decision, I don't think, on the state fair, is there? Because the
I
state
don't
fair
think
is-
so.
Pardon?
I don't think so. I think
No.
you're correct.
Because the last time I was at Terrace Hill, they still are really vacillating as far as the state fair is concerned. And if that doesn't go, that's gonna really make a big difference.
It also might make the crowd bigger just because people don't have other things to be doing. They might be interested in coming, but that's why I was just saying I want to be able to talk to some people and find out
Okay.
how they feel
Oh.
about it.
I'll talk to Scott and lean towards Labor Day as a possible date for this year. And then we'll go from there with Scott. We're going to need to set a Ways and Means meeting because of Scott again. He's causing me trouble. He's got a fire truck that would be a very good deal that we've been saving money for. We need to look at that. We also need to look at possibly putting in a bid on the DOT property that is on the auction block currently. So we need to look at that for Ways and Means. Franchise Environmental, we need to set a meeting to talk about the garbage here in the near. I'm getting a few emails from Dave Schaub to talk about that one.
Okay.
Next council meeting, I will probably have either a contract with the sheriff's office or I will have a resolution to hire part-time officers to cover the police department over the summer. This summer, we have 3 officers that are going to the academy. We have 1 officer that's on medical duty. He ruptured a bicep tendon, and of course, we're short one because we had to let one go this spring. So we're going to be down 5 officers, so we're going to try and see if we can pick up some part-time officers to help cover shifts. Whether it be either a contract with the sheriff's office or if we have to hire part-time officers from other places, we'll have something for that for you for the next council meeting, for the first one in June.
Okay.
Mel?
All right, the project update is attached to the agenda. On step 2, things are moving very quickly and going very well with Maxwell Construction as the contractor. The trail through the Neff wetlands is still closed, but we are getting closer to having that opened back up. Once that section is opened, the section between Burlington and the BNSF Railroad adjacent to Chautauqua Park will be closed. But we are waiting until the Neff wetlands section is open before we close the next section of trail. So that project is moving along nicely. We're continuing, wastewater treatment plants continuing, Highway 1. We had a really good project update with Shive Hattery today as they continue on finalizing design, getting ready to submit a preliminary final design, something to DOT for their approval, and we would be looking at land acquisition, starting some of those processes in the next couple months. We will be needing to have public hearings prior to starting that, so we'll be bringing that to you in the months of June and July. Michael already mentioned Petrus Park. They plan on being in town next week, so hopefully we start seeing some vertical construction happening there. The Carnegie elevator, those submittals came to me last week as far as final approval of the interior of the car design. So we're looking that the parts are going to be shipped in mid-July, meaning that it's likely going to be an August construction. We don't have a final schedule, but once we do have a schedule, we'll work with Indian Hills and all of the entities that use that building when that elevator needs to be shut down. And then the last one I wanted to point out is that the library chiller is complete. It's installed. We did a walkthrough with the engineer and the contractor last 2 weeks ago. Just a few punch list items that are needed. So in June, we'll declare that project complete, but it is up and operational. So unless there's any questions, those are the projects I wanted to touch base on tonight.
Any questions, council?
Thank you.
If not, I think that's it for tonight. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Gandy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.